welcome to the show. Today is the day. I'm so excited to jump into the conversation with you. And don't worry, I don't just say that to everybody either. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I started off real estate investing back in 2002 completely by accident. I bought a house with a significant other, and about a month later, the relationship fell apart, and I had a house, and I had all the bills associated with that house. So stuffed it full, a bunch of roommates, completed the rehab on the property because it had green shag carpet, psychedelic daisies, walls in the wrong places, and completed the rehab and sold the house 11 months later. And made more money in that one transaction than I did in my public health job. And so that had me often traveling 80 hours a week. So I know a lot of people here are medical professionals. I was working for the CDC at the time, teaching doctors how to identify anthrax and smallpox cases. Remember, this is post 9/11. There was a lot of crazy things going on. Yeah. And how to, identify biological, radiological, and chemical incidences in their jurisdiction. So anyways, fast forward, I thought I had real estate all figured out. I thought that was amazing. Not every project went as smoothly as that first one. Had my trials and tribulations, throughout my live and flip and house hacking journey. And then eventually I asked myself the question one day, I'm like, how does somebody retire off of this? And that's when a friend of mine said, well, why don't you rent out one of those flips that you're doing? I was like, oh, genius. Why didn't I think of that? So it scaled to 36 unit rental, 36 rental units, and realized I just had another job, quite frankly, at the end of the day. So repositioned that into larger multifamily buildings, and did pretty well at those type of assets, but decided I needed to go bigger, faster. So I kind of hit this inflection point and tried to figure out, like, do I now become the general partner on these assets, or do I invest as a limited partner in the assets? And quite frankly, I couldn't decide, so I did both. And at the end of the day, I will say I have grown my portfolio the fastest as a limited partner in various assets like multifamily, self-storage, express car washes, real estate debt. And that brings me to where I'm at today. I am the Director of Investor Education at passiveinvesting.com. We help investors who are busy, like most of the people listening to this episode, place their capital into real estate assets and, and take advantage of the 5 different profit centers of real estate. And I also coach people too. So in single family and multifamily, we are going to be able to depreciate that as residential real estate. So take your depreciation schedule, divide it by 27.5 years, right? The service lifetime of the asset. And then if we do a cost segregation analysis on single family or multifamily, we can take anything that depreciates in 20 years or less, fast forward that to the first 5 years of hold. We can do a similar process with express car washes, but now remember, we don't have a piece of commercial real estate. We have an operating business where we own the real estate. So we are able to pretty much take that entire schedule, including depreciating the building, in the first 5 years. We can also layer on that tax bonus, which right now in 2024 is 60% bonus depreciation. So, for my investors going into an express car wash this year, you're probably going to land like right around 65% bonus depreciation or total depreciation for year one. So very attractive. However, this depreciation is generally going to be captured and held within the business level, meaning you're going to be able to use this to offset the income. Probably for most investors, especially if you still are working your full-time job, you're not going to be able to take that and use it against other assets like multifamily or self-storage or, your single-family rentals. In the past few years, we've been in the part of the market cycle where it's made sense to invest in the equity side of a deal, right? Multifamily, the ramp up of multifamily, self-storage, right? But we're in the part of the cycle where cash flow has been compressed, asset prices are still high, interest rates are still high. What is doing really well right now? If you're the bank, you're doing pretty well, right? Because you're able to charge a higher interest rate, especially get a higher spread and probably higher fees. And so debt fund right now is kind of having its heyday, real estate debt. But just like, on the equity side of things, there are all different flavors of debt funds, okay? For us, we like being extremely conservative and plain Jane, very straightforward debt fund, no like, how are we using debt to buy like 6 different asset classes and blend a arbitrary increased return and then leverage the debt fund in order to go get more money so we can lend out more. All of that creates risk. We're trying to, put out there a limited risk. I can't ever say risk-free. I mean, anybody that says risk-free, like that just doesn't exist.
Yep.
But for us, we, raise capital for our investors, and we take that capital and we deploy it through our 𝗪𝗵𝗀 lending arm to fix and flippers in residential real estate, primarily in the Carolinas and in mostly the southeast part of the United States, but primarily the Carolinas. And we have over 40 years of experience between our managing director and our managing operator there to be in lending, and not only lending period, but also lending in the Carolinas. So we're extremely familiar with this market. We're taking that first lien position. So something goes wrong on the asset, we either get paid off first or we get the asset. We're not competing with any other loan positions on the asset. We're underwriting the borrowers, very thoroughly. Most debt funds, they target a 1 to 2% default rate. Our target is 0%. Right now we're at 0.002345, like under 100.
So that one person.
We have had, out of over 1,500 loans, we've had 3 defaults.
Yeah.
So whereas most lenders would have had at least 10 to 20 defaults on 1,500 loans. So we've lent to date over $309 million through our 𝗪𝗵𝗀 lending arm. How I think about it and how I coach people is like, how can you make the roof over your head your first investment property? I stumbled into that completely by accident, and I'm so thankful for that experience. But I think, having if you can learn now how to make that first, your home, your first actual investment. And I don't mean just go buy a home, right? Because that's not your asset. It is an asset, but whose asset is it? It's the bank's. In order to make it your asset, you have to learn how to outsource the principal and interest, the taxes and insurance to another entity, like roommates, like build an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit on their property. Maybe you, if you travel a lot, like we travel a lot, we do Airbnb and VRBO in our house. Like we rent it out. And then that would be kind of number one. And then how can you stepwise level up into your next investment? For me, I love doing things passively. I want my time back, my choice back, my freedom back. But some people are like, very few people I meet actually should be, managing their own real estate portfolio. But if you are that person, you don't have to have 1,000 doors in order to be able to do that. You can get a hugely long ways by just buying 10 fourplexes, right? But it's, how can you use
say that like it's so easy. Just buy 10 fourplexes.
I didn't know. It's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
The mechanics of it are simple. Most of us have that translatable skill already, right? That's
all
why
about the framework. Yeah.
It's all about the framework. Okay, I've already done this. Okay, how can I add just a little bit more complexity to the next transaction? Okay, I got that done. How do I add a little bit more complexity to the next transaction? But I would say, how can you make that roof over your head your first investment?